We're Laura and Cindy, and you're listening to the Holistic Horsemanship and Husbandry podcast, where we talk about natural horsekeeping and deepening your connection with your horse. I'm Laura, your horse care mentor. I teach natural horse management practices after working with over 200 horses and seeing how current industry standards are compromising the health of the horse.
And I'm Cindy, your horsemanship mentor, offering a proven and unique approach to creating deep connections with your horses from 20 plus years of experience, including working with wild Mustangs. If you enjoy this conversation, please leave us a 5-star review wherever you're listening to us so we can get this podcast into the ears of more passionate horse people. Today we have a very special guest joining us from Kentucky, and her name is Kathy Baar. And I'm going to just give you a quick intro about Kathy professionally, and then I'll give you my personal thoughts on Kathy. Kathy is a USDF gold medalist, author, horse development specialist, and natural horsemanship instructor. She has been studying and teaching natural horsemanship for over 20 years, combining the happiness of the horse with the results needed for competition and horse development. Kathy, we are really excited to have you here today. Thank you so much.
I'm excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yes. So I met Kathy back in 2010. I was attending a Pirelli Confidence Makeover. I was going there not to build my confidence as much as to build Gino's confidence. And for any of you that have been listening to our podcast for a while, you've heard me talk off and on about Gino. And Kathy was our lead instructor for the 2 weeks. And I think it was, day one when we had to bring our horses out to the playground. I learned the very, very important stop and yell at the top of your lungs, loose horse, as I'm nurturing the rope burns on my hands. And so we really practiced that for 3 solid days before Gino and I were able to stand still emotionally in the playground. And Kathy had, I don't know, there had to have been 12 or 15 of us. And she so eloquently handled the entire group while still making sure to help Gino and I. And I went with Gino hoping to either help him get over his trauma, maybe one of Pirelli's top levels would fall in love with him and I would leave with an empty horse trailer. Or I don't know what I expected, but what I got was a horse who was more calm and an instructor who was extremely compassionate, not only towards me, but towards him. A great group of women who supported Gino and I through the entire thing. I had a horse who was afraid to approach the water trough and drink when anybody was near him, to a horse who was like going up eagerly when other horses were there and literally like, hi, hi, hi. I mean, we had so many other students from doing all kinds of different things there, literally reaching out every morning and saying hi to Gino. So Gino has never been ridden. Kathy helped me understand at that time that he was probably scarred deeper emotionally than he could ever overcome. And he's still with me today. He's 26. And that's how I met Kathy. So she has a very dear space in my heart, even though we don't talk much.
That's an amazing story because we haven't gotten to talk that much and we haven't talked recently. But thinking back on it, the thing that stood out to me about you at that time was, even though you had rope burns and were kind of faced with sort of a challenging horse and not perhaps moving towards your ultimate goals with him, the amount of empathy and care you had for doing right by him is what really stuck with me. And how important it was for you that it was correct for him and that you were so willing to learn and adjust and be what he needed so that he could move forward. And that still sticks with me today, that memory of meeting you guys out there.
One of the things that I loved about that 2 weeks there was the pond.
Yeah.
And Gino absolutely loved that pond. And every day we would go through that pond, and it was fun to watch him, so terrified, to actually having fun by the end of our trip there. So fast forward 15 years, tell us where you've gone personally, then professionally with your horsemanship.
This is an excellent question. Personally, when I first got into horses, I really thought that my goal was competition. And so being super supportive, my parents helped me find competitors and trainers to work with. And working with those trainers, I kind of quickly realized that competition, it was still a goal, but above that was my love for the horse. And as soon as that started to go away, then I kind of lost interest. So what I mean by that is the people that I was working for, the horses weren't happy horses. You know, they had a lot of displaced behaviors. It was really obvious that they were not feeling like partners. Given the choice, they wouldn't have shown up for work that day. And at that point, I thought, well, these are the top competitors. If this is the way competition is and horses are in competition, then I guess horses are not what I want to pursue. So I actually started to go kind of a totally different direction with school and everything, and then just saw this little clip of Pat Pirelli on TV, and he happened to be riding a horse bareback and bridleless. And he, lucky for me, went over a jump, which is what I was interested in. So that got my attention. Found out he was going to be doing a little expo in my area. And I'm like, well, this isn't going to affect my new plans at all. I'm still not doing horses, but there's this horse fair. I may as well go and see this guy. So while we were there, I won tickets to go out to Colorado to his center out there. And hadn't been to Colorado. I grew up in Ohio. And so I thought, well, this is a great opportunity. My mom and I will go together. We'll get a trip out west. She'll be able to show me some of the places that she's hiked and that sort of stuff before. So we went out there, and it was going to be a great trip before I kind of transferred down to Florida for school, switching totally to marine biology. I thought if my dream with horses couldn't be, then maybe I could work with dolphins. Probably the top two picks for most young girls, right? So kind of by chance, then we went out to Colorado, and what I saw there was, to me, what I thought horses could be. Horses were running to people. People were playing with mares and foals at liberty. The horses, if they were loose in the big pasture, were choosing to come to people. The foals were happy. The horses, and my perception of happy, right? Like, you can't, but the ears were forward. They were choosing to go towards people. They looked like willing partners. There was bareback and bridleless, and it wasn't just him and his wife doing it. It was this whole group of students. So that, not that I'd ever sort of lost the passion for the horses, but that opened my eyes. Like, it's possible to do high level training with horses and have this relationship that feels like, did you guys ever see Pippi Longstocking?
Mm-hmm.
That feels like you could have like your horse like coming in the kitchen and they'd be hanging out with you. So that's what sort of shifted my career that direction. And then rather than just going out there for a trip, I ended up living out there for 10 years.
Wow.
So it was a little bit of a redirect. Since leaving, the things that we try to bring forward in our relationship, I'm lucky enough that I met my husband out there, so he does the same thing I do. We're raising our son now here, and so we live on the farm. We try to bring forward what really inspired us there: multiple breeds, multiple disciplines. And it really, like when you say personal and then professional, because it's our passion and it's because it's why we get up in the morning, it kind of all blends together. Like, for people that aren't into horses, we're very boring to be around. Like, over breakfast we're talking horses, over dinner we're talking horses. We get up in the middle of the night if we have a horse that's in training that we just feel like we're really not helping this horse. That's what gets us up in the middle of the night thinking about what could we do to kind of break down these walls, get a little communication in there, help them with what they're struggling with. So for us, the personal and professional kind of all blends together a little bit. But we've tried to recreate that here so that we bring horses in. I'd say 60 to 70% of what we do is horses coming in. Some of them are fresh starts and they've had great upbringing and they're just here to get under saddle. And then quite a few of them are what have been deemed challenging horses. Two of the horses that we have in now, this is kind of their last chance, or they'll end up being put down if they can't kind of make a change from here. So lots of super interesting stuff: performance horses, fresh horses, out west horses, that sort of thing. And we try to keep it interesting that way. And then I've been very selective, very specific, very choosy. The competition side, I really do for myself. So I'm very fortunate in that I don't have to earn my living or put food on the dinner table based on whether my horses compete or not. And I've kept it that way so that, because I still have this little girl dream that my horses can, no matter what level we compete at, that the next day when I go out to the field, they still want to see me. They still want to get in the horse trailer, even if we're in it all day. And for me at this stage of my development, I feel that keeping that as a personal journey and not making it how I have to earn a living helps me stay really true to that underlying thought so that I still love it and they love it.
Ready to unlock true freedom with your horse? Join Unbridled Freedom, our private Facebook group for women on a spiritual journey in horsemanship. We don't fix our horses, we transform ourselves. This is your space to embrace challenges, celebrate victories, and deepen your bond with your horse. If you're ready to lead with wisdom, compassion, and inner peace, join us today. Let's dance with our horses as one. The link is in the show notes below.
I think if you're a regular listener to our podcast, you would think that Cindy and I might err on the side of anti-horse competition because we talk about the negative stuff about it quite a bit and the behaviors that we see, and know your horse that's over threshold and prancing isn't actually excited to be there. He's having a nervous system breakdown. And so I'm really excited that you're here today, Kathy, because we're not anti-competition. We just don't see it being done in a way that aligns with how we think horses should be very often. I would love for you to just speak to some of the nitty-gritty on what that looks like in your decision-making process throughout a competition and that kind of stuff.
Super. So I'm also lucky in that the way that I like to compete is eventing, which lends itself into some things for horses that are a little bit more natural. Horses in general kind of like being out and about in open spaces. They kind of like having a variety so that we're not training circles in an arena every day. So the sport helps. So I think that I try to do as much outdoor living with my horses as possible. We'll back up from there. I think no matter what type of competition a person is inspired by, the important part is understanding the horse first. So first, as a species, what's important to this species? What are their top priorities? What do they need to stay balanced as an individual, as a species? Then below that is now, what does this individual horse need? Because if we have horses, we've all experienced. One horse likes a lot of motion to think, and one horse likes to really hold still and think. Just like people on the phone. Like I live with a person on the phone, he needs to be like pacing and like moving and moving the arms. And then the brain is like flowing, and that's awesome. And then there's also people who like have their like notepad, right? And they like in a little bit of a quieter setting, a little bit, and then the ideas are flowing. So the horses are the same way. So I think understanding the horse versus the species, and then understanding your individual horse, what they need. So as like a big species perspective, most people have realized at this point that horses do better living outdoors. It keeps many other behaviors in balance, and particularly if they can live outdoors in a herd situation. So that even if you have a horse occasionally that has to be separated in his own paddock for various reasons, can there still be other horses around that? Can the stall situation still be so it has this herd atmosphere to help with the comfort? So trying to do that with my guys. I've got one and he loves to be outside. Like his emotional well-being is so much better. So I'll haul a few extra hours even so that I can bring him home from a competition the night in between so that he can go out and get turned out. And then I'll get up early so that we haul back the next day. Because for him, everything in his body, mental, emotional, physical, just flows better that way. And then I have one and she doesn't really mind being in a stall. So I get to sleep in a little more when she competes. So then that kind of individual side of it, what do they need? So the outdoor living, trying to keep the training so that there's consistency in it. And the real consistency comes from the communication so that they can rely on me to be the same at home as I am in that environment. They can rely on me to be in charge of my emotional fitness and my butterflies and all that sort of stuff, so that for them, the experience of being with me feels similar on property, off property, new zone, those sorts of things. And that's a big responsibility for me as a competitor. If I go and I feel like, wow, I am like electric today, then I need to have some strategies that I've worked on at home to get myself back to the level that's appropriate. And then the variety for the horses comes in the training so that we're not in the arena every day. We're out in the fields and, of course, doing that appropriately with comfort zones and all those sorts of things. But so that some variety is part of their everyday, so that when I haul them off property, it's not like, well, every day we've done it this other way, and now we're going somewhere new. Now we're in an environment where there's a horse next to me I don't know. And so that those things become a part of the daily routine, and you don't get that emotional shock when you have to add it for the competition. Even as far as like separation anxiety, in the winter, my guys end up out in a herd a lot more, and kind of the routine gets a little more repetitive. So they get a little more attached to each other. So as we go to where I might have to haul them, I start to change their schedule about 2 months ahead of time so that we're slowly there. It's becoming normal for them to be on their own. It's becoming normal for their buddies to leave and they stay in, all those sorts of things to try to keep the details as smooth as possible so that we can actually go and show off.
I love the preparation and all of that. I think that there's so many of us that don't understand that really thinking that far ahead on everything and that consistency is so important. I currently have moved off of 9 acres and have my horses at a rescue right now. So they went from pastures to pens, and that was one of my main focuses, like how this is completely different. I've kept my pairs together. I've kept them all together. They're just smaller. And I tried to keep the routine as close to normal as possible. So I'd love to hear you talk about that. What are some of the things that you do? And I'm not asking for you to share your any more than you want to share. But you talked about keep making sure that you keep yourself emotionally regulated when, yeah, you wake up that morning and your nervous system's on What do you do um, personally? Because one of the things that Laura and I share here is that it's just not about asking the horse all the time. We have to be that mirror. We have to be that example. Like you said, we have to be that consistency in their life. And that calls upon us to be emotionally responsible.
Yeah. I think most of the stuff that I do is pretty boring. Like when I'm not competing, I might get a little lazy. Like my bedtime gets a little bit more varied. My wake up time's more varied. I might eat a little bit more sugar. I might have wine more often with dinner, those sorts of things. So if I'm going to compete, and just knowing myself and how I respond to those situations, I know that I have to get really diligent about a routine that sets me up for success. Some people aren't that way. Like some people were born for the spotlight and they show up and they're better. I'm not innately one of those people. It's like the spotlight is on and I'm way worse. So for me to prepare to be who I need to be for my horses, super boring stuff. I go to bed at the same time. I get up at the same, like for several weeks ahead of time. I make sure that my food intake becomes very predictable. I know this is something that works for me for breakfast that gets me through lunch. I know this is something that I can pack with me while I'm at an event for lunch that's going to give me the energy. Because for me, as soon as my energy level goes down, my ability to step up as a leader and my quality of leadership also goes down. I know that for me, my hydration is really important for my mental and emotional state. So making sure that I'm hydrated the whole week before an event is coming up, making sure that my hydration plan is with me and that I stick to that while I'm at the event. Um, for me, it's also important that kind of my physical activity remains very similar. So if I'm doing 2 days of cardio a week, that I keep that going. If it's 2 days of strength, whatever it is, that stays really consistent for me. So I'm kind of a high needs, like if I were a horse, I'd be a high needs horse. Like I have to have the right food, the right water, the right sleep, the right activity, and then I can show up as my best version. So I think the first stage is learning what that was for me, and then me actually being like disciplined enough to go, it is important and I have to hold my health and well-being as high of a priority as I do my horses. Because if I'm not 100%, their quality of existence goes down as well.
I just want to draw attention to what Kathy just said because it's so important in our horsemanship and in our lives. We just talk about the true masters spend 90% of time on the boring basics. And you're doing that in your prep. If I'm someone who's dreaming about a high level eventing career, I'm listening to this podcast looking for the magic tips. We say it all the time, but there are no magic tips. You know yourself and you do the boring shit that's required to get you there, you and your horse.
Yeah, every day, again and again.
Yeah.
Right? Like even, and my son gives me a hard time because if he comes home from school and maybe I think that he could have been happier and more excited to see me, the first thing, the first thing I say is like, here, would you like a glass of water? And so both my husband and son give me a hard time because the first thing that we'll check in if there's like an emotional issue in the house is there's a good chance one of us isn't hydrated. So the first thing we do is like if one of us is, like butting heads and the other one, we're like, did you have your water today? And at the moment you don't want to hear it, but we usually like pause, have a glass of water, wait 5 minutes, and then try the interaction again. And the same thing can even work with the horses. Like sometimes it is just the space of going away, but a lot of times it's maybe I do need a little bit of water. Maybe I didn't get enough sleep last night. Like, so I don't have my emotional reserves that I normally would to handle something that's not just performing perfectly.
As the professional that you are and have spent 20 plus years really helping horses through the stuff that other humans have laid upon them. How does that show up for you when you're out competing? Like, I know that you do the competing part for your personal dream, that little girl. We'll call her Pippi. Um, but as a professional, I know you see lots of things and lots of horses that have to kind of pull at your heartstrings because you know there could be better. How do you compartmentalize that?
Let's pause for a moment. Have you ever looked at your horse and wondered if they're thriving in your care? Is there more you can do to give them the best life possible? Most ranches and boarding facilities are set up for convenience, not horse health, but there's tons you can do to fix your horse's situation if you're willing to get creative. Join Evidence-Based Horsekeeping, my Facebook group where members learn how to improve the mental and physical well-being of their horses. The link is in the show notes.
Good question. I think that the horses have taught me a lot about that. In that, so let's say we get a horse in that is having some challenging behaviors. Doesn't really matter what it is, but something. And most of those behaviors have come up because from like a protection place. So they either put in a place where they feel unsafe, or in a place where something to them was perceived as unfair, and so then they get these like layers of walls or filters that they put between you and themselves, right? And it's a protection thing. This is how I have to be to survive my interactions with people. And that, when you're on this side, can be a little frustrating because you're like, I'm here to help you. I'd like to help you. Like, let me in. Knock, knock. Hi. And, they're just absolutely not. So I think that being a human, there's a level of frustration that can come up with that, right? Like, I'm not that person. I'm not like, please let me help you. You are going to end up on a meat truck unless I can help you see a different way of being around people. So there's this like urgency to it, right? Which then naturally for me, when there's a timeline, my human nature, that brings up the frustration if I'm not making progress, because it's like this backed up against a wall feeling. So with the horses being able to, even in that situation, take the breath and go like, this thing that's hard for them, it's not them doing it. It's not them doing it to me. It's somebody else's, you said, the stuff that people have put in there, right? It's somebody else's thing. But then to take that a step farther, if that's the case for the horses, that's the case for the people. The people being the way they are that are creating those problems, it's often not even them. It's something in life that got put into them from someone else. So I think having the compassion for the horses and going, this is not yours, this is what you've learned as a survival mechanism, then has allowed me to go, that's not even that person. That's how they've learned to survive. And it's not even really their thing. Now, that's the majority of the time. I'd say 95% of the time, competition people are doing something with horses that maybe I perceive as not the correct way. It's because they're doing the best they know how, or they're just trying to survive the situation. So that compassion that I learned from the horses can then carry to that person. Mm-hmm. I think that helps a little bit.
Yeah, and I love that because we can't change everything around us. All we can change is how we perceive it. And by being the example. So you're doing that not only for the horses and trying to show them a better way, but you're also extending that compassion out into the competitive world. And I'm going to go out on a limb and say I'm pretty sure, no, I am certain that it does not go unnoticed when you're there and how you show up and how your horses show up.
Well, hopefully. And like, we're still human, right? Like sometimes my horses still get scared, which surprises some people. The other last year, I was at a show and my little black horse, all of a sudden there was a bicycle coming by and for her in that moment, she said, I've never seen a bicycle on this day at this venue. Fair enough. True. But sometimes that can surprise the people I'm around because they're like, isn't your whole thing about confidence? And hasn't your horse seen bicycles? Absolutely, they have. Not today. And the way she survives as a prey animal is to be skeptical first. So she's doing a great job of being innately her in the moment. And so I think that too, like giving the horses and the other people that grace of like, maybe it was fine the last 75 times, but on the 76th, it's different. It's a new moment. Maybe she has new hormones. Who knows, right? But it's not what it was then. And that's has to be okay if you're going to move forward in a positive way.
I love that.
Yeah, because the confidence comes from how you and her respond to the situation. It doesn't come from her being perfect all the time.
Yes.
And that's, I think, the big piece that, on the whole, horse people's mindset haven't quite grasped.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
I never care if my horse is perfect in every situation because I know that we can handle it.
Yes. And the same thing happens in human relationships, right? We've been in relationships for years. We may love somebody, but it doesn't mean that every interaction is perfect or they're going to say or do what we want them to when we introduce them to a new friend or whatever. But the relationship is built by continuing to move forward together, keeping the communication flowing, not by going, well, you weren't perfect last time, so this system isn't working.
Right. Yeah.
I I find with a lot of my students or clients, whatever I want to call them, when they learn something new with their horse, they're super excited. And when they can duplicate it, that's amazing, right? The confidence in both soars. And then we've all been there. And I think we are all still here at different times. They show up for the next lesson, making the assumption that that's ingrained, that we have moved beyond that's in our toolbox. And they go to try and do it, and it's not there today. And it's interesting to watch the emotional torment that they go through, first the frustration and all that stuff. And I think the biggest lesson for me around that, because I witnessed it in myself too, and I now giggle when I'm like, what? We're really good at this. But for me, what I've learned from all of that is I have been striving for 20 years to get to a mastery level. And about a year and a half ago, I was at a space with a horse that we did something that I had almost thought we would never achieve. And we did. And I felt this moment of, I'm there. I'm like, I've achieved mastery, at least in this thing. And then I realized we're going to spend our entire lifetime trying to become masters at horsemanship. And then I rephrased it to I am more masterful. And that's what I'm striving for. And I think that's in everything that we want to do, like any sport, baseball, football, pickleball, whatever. But we're dealing with a partner who has all his own being. And the best that we can ever do is to embrace being more masterful and helping to teach those that we get to teach that they're doing the same thing. I like to think of it like martial arts. You never get it all the way.
Yeah. And I think the closer you get, the farther you realize you are. Because there's so much more to learn. There's so much more to understand. There's so many more nuances that it's amazing. And I recently heard somebody, and they were talking about that, that moment that you described, that's like the magic, right? And that's like what we've been working our whole lives for. we all got addicted to horses because of this like dream of this magic moment, you know, and it only took 25 years to get one. No, there's been more, right? But like the magic is awesome, but to get there, there's so much behind it. There's so much in between the next magic moment that we have to, like you started to learn to like laugh or smile or, you know, rather than like, oh, it's like, wow, that was totally not what I expected. All right, here we go. And he was saying that the moments that we have with our horses are kind of like those magic moments, are like when an artist paints a beautiful canvas, except for us with our horses, the canvas disappear, like the moment is gone. So it's like a canvas in time of it's create. Yes, I'm in it, and now we're in the next one. And being like that ability with the horses to be in the moment of, because for them they're not, the moments that aren't magic, they're not sitting there going like, oh, this is not magical, you know, I wish this was better. Like they're just so in the moment. They may be uncomfortable, they could be comfortable, but they could be asleep and be thinking this is the most magical moment I've ever had with my human.
Right.
Right? But they're just like so driven by that instant change, and every moment is that new beginning. Um, so well done on your masterpiece of canvas. And then it's like the fall leaves right now, right? Then
Right.
poof, and we have new ones.
And you know, I was thinking as you were talking about that magic moment. And so often with horses, you know what you're striving for, you know what it's going to most likely look like or feel like, right? So you know you're going for that. But for me, so often it unfolds unexpectedly. So, you know, the old saying, horses know what happens before what happens happens. I've worked very hard to become more masterful at that, because so many times, like working with a wild Mustang, all of a sudden, boom, it's clicked. They're like, I'm ready to connect with you. And I'm like, yeah, didn't see it coming. What? What was the subtle, you know? and and you describe it perfectly. It's that being in that present moment. They live in that present moment. 2 minutes, 2 seconds before they said, I'm interested in you. 2 seconds before they weren't. 3 seconds after, they might not be.
And that, like, the more you learn, that feeling of the connection starts to become the magic moments, right? Like when they let down the walls, or you find a way in, or they're like, I'm here, and you feel it. They're here and they are present. That starts to become, then it's like, I don't care if we do pee off or jump 4 feet. It's like that feeling gives me goosebumps. That's where we want to be, is here together in that open communication.
Yeah, that deep connection.
I have a very silly habit of when I've been really busy and haven't been putting in as much time with MJ, my mare, as I wanted to. I'll be like, today's just going to be connection day. We're just going to have magical moments all day. And she just calls me on it every time by turning around and backing her butt into me and be like, to me, magical connection today is you scratching my ass, so get to work. I'm like, fair enough. You were just having a normal horse day, and I'm trying to manufacture something here, and you're not having it. And that's super fair.
Yes.
So, Kathy, I'm going to put you on the spot here.
Okay.
What are some pearls of wisdom that, and I know you have lots, that you would share with some of our listeners who have dreams of being in the competitive world, or are in the competitive world, kind of feeling like this isn't what I thought. It should be better, you know? Um, we'll start with that.
Okay, so I think that's twofold. I think first going, why am I competing? So some people, and I bring that up first, because some people are competing because of the community they thought it would bring them with. right? They like to go to a competition and they like to make sure they're stalled. Like even on the sign-up sheets, you can stable with, right? So the reason they're competing is they want to be stabled with their friends. They want to be stabled with the boarding barn or whatever it is. And if that's the reason you're competing, then the solutions of this isn't what I thought or how do I get it better are a little bit different. Maybe it's the wrong group. Like maybe you're in the wrong tribe. Maybe you need to be with a different group and that's your competition. Maybe your competition, the level that you're actually competing at or what you've entered needs to change so that you can enjoy the community, so that you're not feeling overfaced by the task. And if you're there to have fun and like have this be a weekend girls event or whatnot, then make the competition 3 layers less than what you're doing at home, or 3 levels less, so that you can go and enjoy what's important to you, which is supporting my friends, talking with them, being there at dark 30 to help them braid their horse, whatever it is. Now, if you're competing and it's not what you thought and you're very much there to go, what can my horse, let's say it's like a test. Here's what we've done at home. Have I prepared enough to show up on the day? Then there's kind of 2 elements. One is my personal growth as a human. Is that what's getting in the way? That the thought of competition leaves me a little dry in the mouth, my heart rate goes up, those sorts of things. Or is it my horse who gets in this environment and lets me know I'm not prepared for this? And then that kind of shoots us off in 2 slightly different directions of, is this not what I thought it was because my horse is not feeling ready? And the result is he's screaming for his friends. He's antsy and dancing around. He now has ulcers, displaced weaving, those sorts of behaviors. Or are we showing up and I feel I have to throw up every time before I go in? So I think each one of those of like, the first thing to go is, why is it important to me? Why am I doing it? And then once we discover that, then we go, okay, and what about my why is kind of not showing up? Because then that gives you a direction. And maybe it's just like, competition sucks. I actually don't like competing. And then you find a tribe that doesn't compete, that goes and plays or trail rides or sits in the round pen and works on connection. And so whatever it is, I think discover the why first, and that's going to help you point you in a direction of a solution.
Beautiful. And now part 2. How do you know that it's what your horse wants to do?
Oh, the big question, right? The people who come to us and bring horses that don't compete, their biggest thing is, we'll say, what are your goals with the horse? And they're like, I don't know, whatever he wants to do. So again, I usually at this point ask for more information. So if somebody says, I want to do what he wants to do, then I'll say, well, what would it look like if he was doing what he wants to do? Because each person's version of that is different. Some people go, well, he would be good at it. So a horse being good at it means that he likes it. That's a much different direction to go down than some people say, he'd come to me the next day. That's a different direction. Some will say his ears would be forward. Some might be he'd like it if it were easy for him. So I think, how do we know our horse likes it? And that's why having a happy horse is important to me. But now you run into, well, how do you know if your horse is happy?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that's why I'm kind of a little more clumsy. And I say it's important for me that my horse wants to be with me the next day. And what that looks like to me is that when I show up at the gate or the stall, they come not with their ears pinned, but they come with what I perceive as a happy expression, ears mid or forward, softness in the body and the muscles, softness in the eye, and they're showing up to me. To me, that's what I perceive as a horse who wants to be with me the next day. And if I guess a happy horse, but I think it's hard to define when we start to get into those kind of emotions. And like I answered and didn't answer your question. How do I know if my horse wants to do it? It's all human perception, because we're not in a place right now, maybe AI will be one day, where we can ask a horse, do you like it? But we can go to us, a happy horse looks like ears forward or showing up or those sorts of things.
Yes, I 100% agree with all of that. And what's really coming up for me and listening to your explanation, because yes, it seems right now one of the things going on in the professional side of the industry is, well, he doesn't like to do that. I want him to be happy to do that. Um, I won't do that because it doesn't make him happy. And it's that's a fine line, which there's so many in this world with horses. But I was thinking about everything that you were saying and like how do you know? How do you truly know? Right? I think a lot of it is learning the horse psychology and the horse behavior and the individual, like you started out this conversation. First, you have to know the species, then you have to know the individual. But I think one thing that horses, I can say, are masterful at, that we are not, but we get better if we continue to be devoted to the horse, is what does it feel like? What is the feel coming from my horse when we are doing that?
Yeah.
And so, yes, our eyes tell us a lot, but I think really down deep inside, it's that intuitive feel. Like when Luke walks in the door, you see him, you hear him, but the real communication is the feel. Something's wrong with my son. Oh my God, he's on fire. What happened today, Luke? you know? So I think, yeah, I think the greatest gift that we as teachers and mentors could do for others is to help them understand it's the feel that comes from the horse.
Absolutely. And I think you hit on something there with being teachers and mentors to the horse and other humans. We have the ability to teach the horses to enjoy or not enjoy a lot of things.
Yes.
So a lot of horses that come in, maybe they've been bred to be jumping horses, and maybe they, even left alone, jump in and out of pastures because they can. But they've been taught, when a rider's on top and when it's in an arena, to dislike jumping. If they weren't born that way, they still choose to jump out on their own, but they've taught, under these circumstances, this is a dangerous situation, or it's an uncomfortable situation, or it's unsafe, the things that are important to them. So because we know we can teach horses to hate or dislike certain things, we also have the ability as their partners and mentors to teach them to enjoy stuff and to help them learn how to enjoy and grow, just like we do. We know as humans, getting on the treadmill or going for a run for a lot of humans is not like, yay, I love this. Some it is. And then some people have trained themselves to enjoy it through the diligent practice and the patterns. And the same can be with the horses. Not that the horses are going to wake up in the morning and go, okay, today I have to work on my mental fitness to love jumping. But because we're the mentor, we can set up situations where they're like, hey, that jumping thing was kind of cool. It might even start with, like, a horse who's been totally turned off of jumping. It might start with walking over a ground pole and dinner's on the other side. It might start with hopping over something, and that's how they get to the pasture, or that's how that itchy spot that's on their belly button in the summertime when all those little gnats are out, that's how they get scratches. So it can be a very simple start, but we have the ability to shape what the horses are enjoying and what they get value out of and those sorts of things.
Huge responsibility,
Yes.
you
I
know?
want to kind of pull some pieces of this full conversation together because it's so important. Kathy talked about how you can tell a horse enjoys things. And she outlined 15 different things. And she never said, this is how you can tell a horse enjoys things, because the horse industry can't agree on what that looks like. And Cindy pulled forward, well, because it's the feeling. I know when I feel the feeling. And when I am connected intuitively to myself and my horse, and I am open and my protection guards are lowered, I'm not trying to force something to make something happen to put a paycheck on the table to feed my kids. I can be open to that feeling. And then I truly know. And all of this comes down to putting the empowerment back on the rider and the horse owner and not having them outsource their feelings and their thinkings to their trainers and their mentors. And so if you're listening to this podcast, I kind of just want you to feel into, where am I sticky in that? And where can I bring some attention to my situation? I know, fully in my heart, I know that there are horses who love competing. But I also think they're few and far between right now because of the way that we are approaching it. And we need to take our guards down and stop saying, well, I'm right and you're wrong because your horse is miserable, and start developing and nurturing that intuitive, he's having a good day today, he's having a bad day today. Today, I think I'm going to push him outside of his comfort zone and he can handle it. And today I'm going to get in the trailer and go home because it's not happening. And there's no right or wrong in the muck and the mess of all that.
You know, in all of what you just summarized for us, which was you kind of brought it all in. The one thing that really stands out, and it's standing out in our industry right now, and it's important, is the emotional component of the horse and the human. And there's a lot of, I was going to say emotions, but we'll say thoughts around that topic. You know, the old traditionals are like, nope, it's the mind and the physical, the emotions have no place in it. And what I'm really learning within myself and what I do with horses and people is, we have not, generation after generation, taught emotional well-being. We have not taught that every single emotion is needed, and when it's felt and expressed like animals express appropriately when allowed, it flies on by and makes you more balanced. I believe that if we could teach our children from birth to first grade about the powers of our emotions and how to healthily and freely express them without being labeled right or wrong or bad or good, that we could literally start to change our entire society. And being able to allow our horses to be who they are emotionally, because we can't stop it. And when we do, we get the displaced behaviors, right? We get the shutdown, we get the unhappy. So by learning to feel safe and comfortable while they express their emotions, and be willing to work on our own emotional well-being at the same time, to me, that's the happy horse and happy human relationship. We're on that paradigm shift of beginning to give the industry permission to allow our horses to have emotions and for us to have them as well. And how do we deal with them? How do we help our clients and our horses and their horses, like those two? I will send loving Reiki to your two that are on the list. No pressure, right? If you don't fix them, they're dead. But those are horses whose emotions were never allowed to be okay.
Yeah. And a lot of times when you start to allow that, it gets much worse before it gets better. So it's very hard to show progress to somebody who has a very linear idea of what progress would look like in the performance world, because when we start to unravel, it gets a little bit dirtier and messier and louder and uglier for a little while, because the horses go, you want to hear what I think about that? Here it is. Wow. So it's an interesting thing. And to your point, even with the horses, if people could have that early training of going, if you're feeling a thing, it's relevant. It is already happening. It is real to you. It doesn't matter if it's real to Susie or been or whoever, it's real. Recognizing that, being in that, feeling it, and moving forward stronger because of it. If we could do the same thing in horses early learning, so say from the time that they're born until they're 2 years old, that there is this like specialty kind of mental, emotional, physical nurturing kindergarten that horses could be in, then even if the industry didn't improve very much, those horses would have the skill sets and the capacity to show up and be better, stronger learners that were more resilient. So there'd be a higher number of them that could make it, even if that side didn't change, just by giving this foundational piece. And there'd be so many displaced behaviors that we wouldn't even run into because the horses would have more skill set going into the situation versus going in with absolutely no skill set, coming up with a survival mechanism, and then trying to rewrite history before they can go perform again.
Yeah. Have you had the opportunity to come bring one up from that young yet?
Well, we intentionally do with our own. So when John picks one of his criteria is not only that they're kind of bred for his passion, but he also likes them to be as little human contact as possible. So like the last 3 horses that he's picked grew up on like 10,000 acres down in Texas. And then he got them as yearlings before they'd really had much handling. We've got a really cool little guy in now who we came across by chance. Some friends had a family member that passed away. It was one of those estate situations. They had to find places for the horses. So the little guy we have in now, pretty much untouched, maybe 2 or 3 years old, but we're getting to start with him. And the really rewarding thing for him as well as us is, John and I talk about a lot of the stuff that we do with the horse development horses. 30% of it, about 30% is allowing the environment to be part of what trains them. About 30% is reteaching previous behaviors. And then only about 30% of the time we spend with them is actually on trying to develop in the direction where we want to go. The great thing with this little guy is 100% of the time I'm with him, we're painting the picture. Like we're moving in the direction. There's no relearning or trying to cover up, because that stuff, horses are intelligent and they don't all of a sudden just like have a lobotomy, right? Like all those pathways that have been built are still there. You're just trying to build new pathways that hopefully they choose more often, but we're never able to really rewrite those old ones. So yeah, it's super fun with the young ones.
Yeah, my mare came out of a herd of 65 at 7, and she was like halter broke and had had a saddle on her one time. And I take zero credit for her emotional resiliency because I was working through the trauma of losing my first horse while I was training her, and it was probably a freaking disaster. Like that herd of 67 put that in her, and I was just a lovely recipient of it. Like,
They get so much from the environment and the herd. It's
yeah.
amazing.
Yeah, they get to learn to speak their own language first and how to navigate through their own community of their people, their species, before we start introducing them to life with us.
And the herd is this amazing coach on emotional balance. So we've had a mixed herd before and in the past, and then we've brought in another horse for various reasons. And sometimes maybe it's like a horse who lost its dam and it was bottle raised by humans. In general, they're pretty emotionally imbalanced and pretty inappropriate when it comes to speaking horse. So to watch a natural herd deal with that kind of new member, they will keep them outside of the herd and push them away until that horse learns a degree of emotional, mental regulation and that they become more appropriate. And then the herd welcomes them in. Some of them, the herd keeps out for 6 months or 12 months. Some it's 2 days. That just kind of depends on how adjustable that horse is, how fast they are to learn, those sorts of things. But fascinating to watch the horses. Like, you are in no condition to join this herd. You are a liability. Get out. If anyone's going to be eaten, it will be you, because we are not all getting eaten for you. And then when that horse becomes less of a liability for the herd safety, then they get brought in. I feel like horses do that with some people. You know, like some horse human combinations will come, and you could just feel the horses that are like, she is in no condition. She's not allowed to talk to me if she's thinking that way or feeling that way. Like, I will not interact with this human. And then as the humans like learn a little bit more, the horse is kind of like, all right, you can join the cool kids.
We'll give you a chance. You're on probation.
Yeah, right.
Kathy, this has been amazing. Thank you so much for taking this time, and it's been a pleasure to catch up with you. And
thank you for having me. It's been great, Laura and Cindy.
So if you have any questions about the topics covered in this episode, send us a message on our Facebook page, Holistic Horsemanship and Husbandry, and we will answer your question in a post on our page. You will be anonymous. We'll just take the question and provide our input, and we want to do it on the post so that we can all learn and grow together, because nobody knows everything. Thank you for tuning in to another episode. We want to remind you that we'll be here every second and fourth Tuesday of the month, following the golden rule. Have a plan, but always be willing to be flexible. Don't forget to connect with us using the links in the show notes below.
If you learned something new today, had an aha, or walked away with a valuable nugget, you can say thanks by leaving us a 5-star review on whatever platform you're listening on.